Hello everybody. Yep, as you say, Jim, Formula One has taken the long way home this year. 18 races in 16 different countries, and now here we are at the season finale, Brazilian Grand Prix. Rubens Barrichello there said on Thursday he was not expecting any presence from his Ferrari teammate Michael Schumacher in his quest to win his home Grand Prix. But then, free practice, Schumacher went and offered him a gift-wrapped opportunity. Crashing very heavily in practice, he had to take a new chassis and a new engine, and with the rules in Formula One, when you change your engine you go back 10 places on the grid, and that means that Michael Schumacher starts from 18th position this afternoon. But then this rain, as we know, could well play into the hands of Michael Schumacher, the lap record holder at this track here at Interlagos. We know Schumacher has only qualified outside the top 10 on 4 occasions in his Formula One career to date. 2 of them have been in the last 3 races, at Shanghai in China and here in Brazil. Draw your own conclusions from that. Certainly the end of the season for Schumacher a little bit more unsteady than what has gone before. Barrichello, though, is the favourite to win here this afternoon, but his track record at this home circuit for him, he grew up in Sao Paulo, lived here for the first 18 years of his life, is pretty poor. 10 retirements in 11 starts. That man there, Kimi Raikkonen, is one of the people who will certainly make him work pretty hard for it this afternoon. He starts 3rd on the grid. Juan Montoya also in the Williams BMW, his last outing for Williams. He will make Barrichello work hard as well. He's starting alongside the Brazilian on the front row of the grid. And watch out too for Jenson Button. A little bit disappointing in qualifying. There you can see though, 5th on the grid. Made a little mistake. Without that, perhaps he might have been on the front row. But I am reliably informed that Honda are turning the wick up on that engine. They really would like to finish the season on a high. As you know, the engines have to last a whole Grand Prix weekend, so they do run them at different levels. They do try to protect them. Today, Honda are turning the wick up. They're going for broke, and Button and Sato will have maximum revs and maximum power in an attempt to get on terms. But of course, in these wet conditions, that's not such a massive advantage as it would be in the dry. But we've seen all sorts of things over the years here in Brazil. Tracks drying out, and this next 2 hours is guaranteed to be eventful. It is the end of an era in many senses. David Coulthard's last Grand Prix for the McLaren team after 9 years, 150 races together, and 12 victories. Juan Pablo Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, their last outing for BMW Williams before going off to McLaren and Toyota respectively. And as we've heard before, Jaguar's last Grand Prix, parent company Ford, that man there, Emerson Fittipaldi, he won World Championships with Ford. And their association, Martin, with Formula One, you've driven for them in the past, ending after 38 years. You cannot underestimate what a feeling of the end of the era it is with Ford Motor Company leaving Formula One.
No, it's sort of almost too difficult to believe, isn't it? And really, let's hope they're back soon. Many manufacturers have gone away from Formula One and come back again. BMW, of course, being one of them. It's powering the Williams there. We're understanding that Ralf Schumacher's on Inters. Since I was on the grid walking back, it's drizzling rather than spitting with rain, and I think Inters will be the only option. That'll hand quite a big advantage, I think, to the Bridgestone runners. Now, while you're looking at that safety car there, is that if it's needed on the first lap, we've had so many crashes here, of course, in the first lap, and we know it's like a tunnel on the pit straight, high walls, nowhere to recover the cars, and that's quite a clever move. It's a very clever move because it positions the safety car so it can pick up the pack at the bottom of the hill leading into the pit straight, instead of course having to pick them up after they've been through the accident site once already. But the track is much wetter than it looks from that high camera angle, and we'll have to see what the drivers can make of this. Rubens Barrichello with most to lose. He's the fastest driver out there this weekend. You never really want variable conditions like this. You can tend to only go wrong. They're the Michelin intermediates there on Montoya's car. Rubens Barrichello with intermediates too.
Yeah, I think most people will be starting the intermediate tyre It's a big gamble. The Michelins tend to like slightly damper tracks more than the Bridgestones do on the slick tyre, but I think, as Martin said, the track is damper than it looks. It's been raining here in Interlagos for about half an hour, and that's given the track a little greasy sheen. It's still drizzling here now, and well, as I say, a long way to go. 71 laps then of this 2.67 mile Interlagos circuit, one of the favourites for the drivers. You can definitely overtake here. 70,000 crowd this afternoon. Many of them have been here since about 7 o'clock this morning, playing their drums and cheering and screaming. It really is one of the best crowds of the year here in Sao Paulo. Lots of spirit, and they're very happy because their man Rubens Barrichello is trying to become only the 4th Brazilian in over 30 years to win the Brazilian Grand Prix. Carlos Pace, Emerson Fittipaldi, and of course the great Ayrton Senna, the only Brazilians to achieve that.
We think that Coulthard and Villeneuve are on dry tyres. I think they've got less to lose than some of the others. They're quite a long way back on the grid. They're 12th and 13th of the 20 runners, and Michael Schumacher the back of the field on the Inters. But remember, the intermediate Bridgestones, I'll go through it one more time, they have a much bigger window of operation. They will go further into a drying track, and they have to, because the Bridgestone dry tyres do not like a slippery surface. So there'll be a crossover, I suspect, in this race. I am told in the next hour the team's weather forecasters, who have been slightly surprised by the level of precipitation that we've had, they are expecting some heavier rain later on. But what would be going through my mind now, James, right now, as they come into the grid, is not how am I going to get away, it's where am I going to brake into the first turn. And it's going to be a complete unknown. I think you'll see varying levels of confidence as they head down, hopefully not to a front wing crunching situation.
You saw Villeneuve going through frame, as Martin said, using the dry weather tyres. That's David Coulthard, and he too is on the dry tyres. We've often seen Coulthard, that's Villeneuve, I beg your pardon. So both the Renaults, it must have been Alonso before, both the Renaults using the dry tyres, I think, from the looks of things. We've seen Coulthard being more bold than many other drivers on a damp track, taking the dry tyre. He's got nothing to lose, as Martin was saying. And to give you an idea of the amount of progress they make in Formula One, Zolt Baumgartner's at the back of the grid in the Minardi in a time which, if he'd done it last year here, would have put him on pole position in front of the Ferraris. That's how much even the back of the grid teams like Minardi make progress. Someone's dived into the pit lane though.
Bruni, we think, in the pit lane. Yes, Bruni has pitted in the Minardi. He was 19th on the grid. Presumably they want to change some strategy. Hopefully he does not have a problem. And Baumgartner, both Minardis in the pits then.
A little bit of smoke there, looking on board from Alonso's car. That looks like Jenson Button. Well, I was telling you that they were turning the revs up on that car. There's an awful lot of smoke and steam coming out of it. I hope it's okay. Here we go then, 5 lights on. When they go off, we'll be racing in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Great start by Barrichello. Montoya goes defensive, but it's too late. Raikkonen's through, and so is Felipe Massa. And the two BARs have not had a terrific start. It looks like one of them has dived in front, but no doubt who the leader is on home soil. It's Rubens Barrichello. Everyone's slithering and sliding, and just look at Raikkonen, side by side with Barrichello, down the back straight. Has he got the momentum? He's certainly got the inside line into the late descent corner, and Raikkonen takes the lead. Dramatic start.
Raikkonen's got so much grip and confidence. Look at Montoya getting squeezed out on the outside of turn 4. I didn't like the look of that smoke from Jenson Button's BAR on the grid. It was like a black smoke rather than an oil smoke from an overfill. But at the moment, he's running nicely, and I think just taking a position.
Raikkonen leads, Barrichello second, Massa third, Montoya fourth, fifth is Button, sixth Trulli, seventh Takuma Sato, eighth Ralf Schumacher, ninth is Fisichella, and 10th is Zonta. And there's Jenson Button. You can see he's moved up into third place now. He's managed to get himself past Montoya and Felipe Massa.
Well, Massa going well on the Bridgestones. I'm very surprised at Barrichello being so overcautious. Maybe it's because he's only ever finished this race once in 10 attempts. He doesn't want to throw it off on the first lap, of course. But at the moment, the Michelin runners definitely have the more confidence. Let's see if those Bridgestones get up to temperature. Michael up to 12th already. We're on board with him. He had oversteered through the fast corners. That's a scary experience at 180 miles an hour.
Yep, the Jaguar Christian Klein, the one he wants to pass. A bit of a contact there. Schumacher has dived down the inside, but we saw some debris there, Martin. Which car did that come off? Schumacher running wide at turn 1 in his attempt to pass Christian Klein. There he is now, you see, going through your screen now. He's had to give back the place to Clean, but we saw some black car parts flying through the air there.
Alonso, Villeneuve and Coulthard all on the dry tyres, 15th, 16th and 17th. They haven't actually, they're just going towards the end of the first sector now. Very, very slow on those dry tyres. And Raikkonen got away very well, look, behind Barrichello. Montoya having to get very, very wide. Michael Schumacher right at the back, right-hand corner of the grid there, getting squeezed up against the pit wall. But he seems to have a lot of confidence. There's a Renault in the middle there struggling to turn in of Villeneuve, and the two Jaguars hustling him through the corner. And this then is Raikkonen with a brilliant drive out of turn 3, takes the right line. We've got car 7 is off track, I'm seeing, as we're seeing a replay of Raikkonen comfortably taking the lead of the Grand Prix. And look, this is why car 7 is off the track. And is that 7?
No, 7's Villeneuve. He's gone straight on at turn 1. That's Fisichella. That happened at the very early part of the Grand Prix. We're working on lap 3. You can see the order. Raikkonen, dramatic pass at the opening lap. Look at this though. Down the inside goes the BAR. Jenson Button and Felipe Massa having a terrific scrap there. Massa had passed Button and so had Montoya on that lap. We're now riding on board with Felipe Massa. Button has got himself back in front of him, and now Massa attacking again on the run down towards late descent. Michael Schumacher has spun. It's all going off here at Interlagos on lap 3. Tremendous action, and this is what you get when a drizzly condition happens on the racetrack. That's what happened to Michael Schumacher. Again involved with Christian Klien. No contact. There's a back end just swinging round.
Yes, and Michael just touching the white line on the inside sometimes pulls the car around, and this is where he spun in turn 2. He's been pushing very hard in there, and when it goes wrong for Michael, like back in China, it all goes wrong, doesn't it? Raikkonen led by 0.8 of a second for Barrichello. Montoya is 3rd, and look at that, right behind the Ferrari. Massa remains 4th. Button has a problem. That smoke on the grid looks like it could be terminal. They're clearing a space in the garage for Jenson Button. Disaster.
Yeah, that's a real shame for him. There you can see now Barrichello is lining up Kimi Raikkonen. This is the favourite passing place here at Interlagos. He's right up in his draft. He comes down the inside. Barrichello for the lead in Brazil. Yes, he makes it stick.
He does indeed. I'm surprised Raikkonen didn't make him go the long way round. I think he probably realised with a toe and extra speed off Jung Kao, he was always going to pass him. But Raikkonen making that particularly easy for Rubens Barrichello. Now then, 0.8 of a second separate the top 3 with Felipe Massa keeping them in sight down the back straight. Sato 5th, Ralf Schumacher 6th, Trulli 7th. Here is a replay. The perfect slipstream came out actually quite late. Vortices turning and boiling off the back wing of that Ferrari as it pushes it into the ground, and he's got tremendous braking capacity when he gets there, and that, I fear, is Jenson Button.
Well, I told you they were going to turn the wick up this afternoon. It has not worked, but they didn't have anything to lose really. They're pretty sure that Renault are not going to score 16 points, is what they need to do to overtake them for second. There you can see the smoke, which we saw on the dummy grid, is, well, it's terminal once again for Honda, but what a tremendous season they and Jenson Button have had. 10 podiums this year. He continued on past the pits, as you can see. He wanted to keep racing because he has proved this year he is a true racer. Fastest man on the track at the moment, though, Martin, is one Pablo Montoya. As you can see, he's closed right up behind Kimi Raikkonen. That last lap for Montoya, a good half second quicker than the 2 men in front of him. Felipe Massa, interestingly as well, is keeping pace. We believe he's running a lighter fuel load than the others, but he's got a lot of straight line speed in that Sauber.
Yeah, and these Bridgestone Inters are now delivering the kind of pace we're expecting. Ralf Schumacher is pitting. I suspect that is for dry tyres. This is Coulthard and Villeneuve fighting over last place. They're on dry Michelin tyres, and it's not working out for them. Alonso, though, on dry Michelins, now the fastest man on the track by 2.6 seconds. The track is changing corner by corner, and the Michelin's really coming on song if you're on dries. I suspect we'll have to see Raikkonen pit at the end of this lap. This is where the Bridgestone Inters can go. That window is wider. They can go a little bit further.
It's not looking too bad then for Alonso. He's on the right tyres. He's 15th in this race at the moment, but 22 seconds down on the race leader. But you need around about 21 or 22 seconds to make a stop here. So he's going to pass a lot of people in front of him who have to make pit stops. It's going to get very busy indeed in the pit lane in a minute, and Ted Kravitz is down there.
That Renault time was the trigger for all of them. They're now coming out for Juan Montoya. McLaren are out. BAR also out for Takuma Sato. The ones who aren't, of course, who can go the longest are Ferrari. But how long before Rubens Barrichello has to put on slicks?
Indeed, as we said, now you've got then Barrichello first, Massa, a Brazilian 1-2. And the crowd are surely going crazy as we see it. Raikkonen, Montoya in the McLaren, and the Williams. Sato into, as is truly in the Toyota, who was running 7th.
Christian Klein is 5th for Jaguar. He's on Michelin tyres. He has not stopped. Neither is his Jaguar teammate, Mark Webber. They're going for a little bit of glory side by side down the pit lane. It looks to me like a Montoya-Raikkonen battle, that one, Martin.
Well, they're going to be
very close. Here's Michael Schumacher. He's gone for dry tyres as well. That little gamble of putting heavy fuel in his car for qualifying yesterday didn't work. And, well, what can Schumacher do from here? He's going to be well back.
Raikkonen and Montoya will be teammates at McLaren next year. They were nearly sharing the same piece of tarmac, exiting the pit lane, and Montoya has braved it out around the outside, makes it stick, and he's taken the place.
This is important psychologically for these two. They're going to be teammates at McLaren next year, as Martin has just said. And well, whoever gets on top in the final Grand Prix of the season, going into the winter, they'll be looking at each other throughout winter testing. A huge programme of work going on, and Raikkonen will know, or whoever loses will know, that the other one beat them in the final race.
Massa 1.3 seconds faster than Barrichello in the first 2 sectors as Button walks back to the pit. Massa's about to take the lead, unless he has to pit for fuel anytime soon. Imagine he can go quite a bit further yet. But and Barrichello pits. Massa is in the lead for Sauber.
Absolutely extraordinary here at Interlagos. There is the former race leader, Rubens Barrichello. Felipe Massa in only his 34th Grand Prix. The 23-year-old Brazilian is leading here at Sao Paulo.
Massa's made a mistake going round though. He's leading for a lap, and that's good glory. But Alonso is now just 11.5 seconds behind him, lapping 4 seconds a lap faster, and he's going to have to pit stop. I think it might just be done in a fuel window, James, for him, to minimise the damage. He was expected in sometime around lap 10 or 11. This is lap 7 that they're on. But Alonso, the man on the move, now up to 3rd place, 2nd actually.
That was Mark Webber in the Jaguar, pitting from 6th place, so staying out seemed to have worked okay for him. We enter a chaotic phase now where everybody sorts themselves out. We still haven't seen Massa in the pits. We have not seen Alonso. We won't do either because he's on the dry tyres. Klein has been in. Heidfeld in the Jordan has not been in. He is up into 5th place. That's Zolt Baumgartner in the Minardi. The track drying out here in Brazil. This is lap 7, and Massa, there he is, still the race leader. Is he going to pit this time? Yes, he is. He dives down to the left. His lap of glory was a sweet memory for him, but the man you've got to watch out for here is Fernando Alonso, because I believe he is leading this Grand Prix now. Rubens Barrichello having made a pit stop.
Yeah, that's how Alonso moved up to 2nd now. As you say, he's moved up to 1st. He's lapping in a 1:15.6. Those on the intermediates are doing sort of 22s and 1 minute 23s. So Alonso leads from Montoya. Raikkonen, Heidfeld in the Jordan is up into P5 at the moment. Ralf Schumacher 6th, he has stopped. Fisichella 7th, Sato 8th. Barrichello came out and is showing his 9th. Villeneuve started on dry tyres, up to 10th. Him and Coulthard now lapping nicely.
Tremendous scrap going down the straight there. Takuma Sato involved in that. Fisichella, Barrichello. There he is in the Ferrari. So it's all chopping and changing here at Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is lap 8, and Fernando Alonso has taken a gamble on the dry tyres in the Renault at the start of this Grand Prix, and it's starting to look as though that Renault is looking pretty handy here. Renault leading. Villeneuve in the other Renault is up into 10th place. There we can see a replay of one of the 2 Jaguars. In fact, they queued up. Klein came in first, and Mark Webber came in just behind him for the dry tyres. And well, Well, we saw Villeneuve and Coulthard right at the very back of the field just a few laps ago when it was wet condition. Now they are making their way up. Villeneuve is in 7th place, David Coulthard 8th. And the people who certainly had the glory at the start are suffering a little bit at the moment. Rubens Barrichello is down into 6th place. I'll tell you who's come out of this quite well is Juan Montoya. You know, Martin, the guys who came in earlier, the Michelin guys who came in earlier, have come out of this better than the Bridgestones that stayed out on those intermediate tyres. Look, Montoya 2nd, Raikkonen 3rd, Ralf Schumacher, the first man to pit, has got himself up into 4th place, and he was on the fringes of the top 10 in the opening couple of laps. And Rubens Barrichello, meanwhile, has dropped behind that gang, and he is now in 6th place with Villeneuve and Coulthard just behind him.
Indeed, yes, they just stayed out a little bit too long. They were tempted, weren't they, to take that time that was in their pocket and the certainty. But meanwhile, the others were taking more of a gamble, and it paid off handsomely. Alonso, a new fastest lap of the race and a new lap record on a 1:13.317, immediately beaten by Montoya, who's 8 seconds behind him, also on a 13.3, but fractionally faster. Raikkonen, 13.3 as well. He's 9.6 behind Alonso.
Very nearly a collision there in all that melee in the pit lane. You saw one of the Jordans coming out, almost colliding with another car. But at the moment, well, Fernando Alonso, we're seeing here, really has this thing very nicely placed. He is just under 8 seconds ahead of Juan Montoya. Kimi Raikkonen behind him. We're riding on board with Michael Schumacher, and that is David Coulthard just in front of us. We're going to line him up, and we're going to pass him into late descent corner. Coulthard tries to resist. They've had a few run-ins. Schumacher knows it's Coulthard's last Grand Prix for McLaren, and maybe his last Grand Prix ever, and he certainly knows there will not be any farewell presents from David Coulthard. Terrific, gutsy stuff from the Scotsman there.
It was indeed.
Lap 11 of 71 in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the final race of the 2004 World Championship, and it's a thriller. Fernando Alonso is leading ahead of Juan Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen, but look at this, Michael Schumacher trying to get alongside David Coulthard. Coulthard going to resist him, no?
He squeezes him up the curb on the inside. We know that Michael took some wing off because he had to take a 10-place drop on the grid. He had more speed down the back. Coulthard saying, "You're not coming past me, mate." 100% of people think that DC is out of Formula One next year. Cawthorne, myself and Coulthard himself are absolutely sure we're going to find something for him, and he's racing pretty feistily today. They're fighting over 8th place at the moment. Alonso on a 1:12.9, a new lap record. He's absolutely flying. You're just watching a replay of Montoya and Raikkonen braving it out down the pit lane.
Yeah, we saw that earlier on. They both rode over someone's walkie-talkie, so I don't imagine there'll be too much sound coming out of that from now on. Jenson Button went for glory here, turned the wick up on the Honda. It hasn't worked. He's talking now with Louise Goodman.
Yeah, Jenson, as James has just been saying, Honda said they were going to turn the wick up for this race. Looks like they turned it up a bit too high.
As far as I know, there's no difference to the last race. It's very disappointing, to have something happen before you've even started the race. Had a fire on the grid, and I thought as soon as I got going, I'd be able to put it out. But we sat there for so long. I think it's destroyed some of the electrics because the engine was down on power for the 3 laps that I completed, which is a real pity because the car was working well, and I was able to get up to 3rd place while the other guys were napping, and it could have been a very interesting result, I think.
Disappointing last race, but on the whole, not too much to complain about this season.
Yeah, it's a great season, to get 10 podiums, and the media's been a little bit up and down because of the CRB, but it's been a great year all round. It's just a pity we couldn't end on a high. It's a disappointing way to end.
Thanks, gents. We'll see you in Melbourne.
CRB Contract Recognition Board, which decided this week Jenson Button will stay with BAR for next year, not moving to Williams, and taking this man Montoya's seat. Montoya moving to McLaren. Of course, he's currently in 2nd place, 8.5 seconds adrift of Alonso. Alonso just had a poor lap. Presumably it was traffic, and Montoya's cut that lead down to 7 seconds. 1.6 behind Montoya. In 3rd is Raikkonen.
Yep, and he's the fastest man on the track at the moment, Kimi Räikkönen. David Coulthard, his teammate, also going very strongly in 8th place, and I was very impressed with the way he fought off Michael Schumacher there. That was a clear statement from Coulthard. This is my last Grand Prix in a McLaren, maybe in the front-running team, who knows, but you ain't coming past me. Those two have had some run-ins. Remember Manucor a few years ago, and well, Coulthard has beaten Schumacher on occasions, and he's beaten him here at the moment. Alonso leading the race then, from Montoya second, Räikkönen third, 8.5 seconds behind Alonso. Ralf Schumacher is 13 seconds behind the Spaniard in 4th place. Sato 5th, 15 seconds back from Alonso. And Barrichello, the early race leader, is down 23 seconds. What we've seen here then, Martin, is the situation where I think the Bridgestone people on their intermediate tyres, Barrichello and Massa in particular, they felt a bit bold, didn't they? They knew that they would go a little bit longer. They stayed out the extra lap, and the Michelin drivers who came in a lap earlier, they benefited. Montoya, Räikkönen, Ralf Schumacher and Sato all managed to get themselves ahead of Barrichello. And Massa, well, he's really dropped out of the picture. He is down into 10th place, having stayed out the longest of all.
David Coulthard just broke the lap record with a 1:12.7, and that was immediately followed by Montoya, also fractionally faster on a 1:12.7. The track is clearly bone dry. That's 2.1 seconds faster than the lap record. Immense pace. This is the sweet spot. The air is nice and cool. The track still got rubber on it. We didn't have heavy rain. Everything works so nicely. Alonso is giving that Renault full bananas. He wants everything out of it. He knows he's got a closing Montoya behind him.
Well, you know, I was talking to one of the Renault engineers this weekend, and they said this guy, there is no one faster than him in race conditions. They've never worked with anybody who pushes as hard as he does, and he really does put every single lap, absolute maximum commitment. It'll be very interesting to see him alongside Giancarlo Fisichella next year in this Renault team. His qualifying this season's been a little bit up and down. He threw it off the road early on in the season a couple of times. I think his confidence a little dented on the single lap, but every time he's been in a race, he's been absolutely magic. And Alonso leading here still by 7 seconds. We're riding on board with Kimi Räikkönen, and I hope is that Montoya we're coming up to lap? No, it's a back-marking Minardi, so that explains the speed differential. Huge stop then from 195 miles an hour down to 60 for the Senna S. Kimi Räikkönen. This is the corner where all the people crashed last year on the river of water, but the track, as Martin's just said, bone dry now here. We've got some terrific racing conditions in Brazil, and Räikkönen is in pursuit of his teammate for next year, Juan Montoya, and 2nd place.
Coulthard pits then for what I would imagine is his first scheduled stop of the afternoon. Ted is down there.
Good stop so far by the McLaren boys. Coulthard was in a brilliant battle with Jacques Villeneuve. He was much quicker than Villeneuve in the middle sector. An earlier stop there than Renault. Let's see if DC can put the hammer down, try to pass Villeneuve in the stops.
Very emotional moment this morning when Coulthard was given a presentation by his mechanics, and a lot of them broke into tears, including DC himself. Highly charged emotion in this final race for McLaren.
Yeah, there's been a lot of emotion in a lot of places. The Jaguar mechanics not quite sure what's going to be happening to them. The team up for sale from the Ford Motor Company. A lot of people a little bit uncertain about the future. A lot of politics been going around this weekend as well, which has pretty much characterised this Formula One season. Some good racing, tremendous domination from Ferrari, and huge amount of politics about the future of the sport going on in the background. Alonso leading then. Montoya just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. There he is in 2nd place. Really wants to see out his BMW Williams career on a high with a victory. Yet to win in 2004, Juan Montoya. He's in 2nd place. Räikkönen still 3rd. Ralf Schumacher 4th for Williams. 5th for BAR is Sato, and 6th still Rubens Barrichello. That home Grand Prix victory starting not to look all that clever for Barrichello. The car isn't any quicker than the front runners at the moment. He's matching Alonso's lap times, but he's not as fast as Montoya at this stage of the Grand Prix. And you know, Martin, one or two people saying in the paddock this morning that perhaps the Michelin tyre had a slight edge here. You'd have to say at the moment, on this track, in these conditions, that would appear to be the case.
Certainly plenty fast enough, aren't they? Let's have a look. Yes, 4 Michelin runners, 5 Michelin runners in the top 5. Barrichello, though, is matching them for pace. He's currently 6th. And remember, though, Alonso has yet to make his pit stop. He's leading handsomely, having lost so much time with those dry tyres. in the slippery conditions early on. Alonso from Montoya, Raikkonen third, Ralf Schumacher fourth, Sato fifth, Barrichello sixth, Villeneuve seventh in the sister Renault. Michael Schumacher now to eighth after Coulthard's pit stop. Massa, the glory over at the moment, he's 38 seconds off the lead in ninth.
So Fernando Alonso, just 23 years of age. What an explosive start he made to Formula One. Has only done 50 Grand Prix in his very young career, but we know he won that Hungarian Grand Prix very dramatically from pole position last year. And a lot expected from him. It's been a strange season for Alonso. He's been very consistent. He's had podiums and he's scored some points. He's fourth at the moment in the World Championship, and yet the lingering feeling really is one of slight disappointment. This Renault has been a tricky car to drive all season. The drivers Trulli and Alonso and Jacques Villeneuve have all said it's been tricky. We've got a yellow flag somewhere out on the course, but part of the problem is they run this car very differently from all the other Formula One cars. The weight distribution much more towards the back. It makes for a car that tends to push into the corners a lot, and it's a particular way you have to drive it. And I know Alonso has tried to squeeze the most out of it, but he's looking forward to something a bit easier to drive next year, and that is Nick Heidfeld in the Jordan. He's spun it at turn 10.
The smoke there, sometimes you get a welling up of heat, and that makes things smoke a little bit, or whether he had a particular mechanical problem, we'll try and find out for you. Meanwhile, Barrichello smashes the lap record yet again. He's P6, but he's doing a 1:12.4. Supreme skill out there this afternoon, James.
Yeah, it certainly is. Barrichello 5 seconds behind Takuma Sato, and at the moment 24 seconds adrift of Alonso. A lot of work to do here for Rubens Barrichello. We're riding on board with one of the two Saubers. Nice rearward shot. You can see the grandstands here in Sao Paulo packed with enthusiastic people from the area called Paulistas. It's a tremendous city this, lots of nightlife, lots of excitement. Into the pits though comes the race leader Fernando Alonso. This is lap 18. Remember, he started on dry tyres. This is his first pit stop of the afternoon, so he was carrying a reasonable amount of fuel in qualifying yesterday, and he's looking pretty good at the moment. Montoya responds immediately by setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, a 1:12.2. He will take over the lead as a two-stop fuel load goes into Alonso's car.
We'd have to say this is working out better in terms of strategy unfolding, James, for Alonso at this time. But as you say, Montoya, who now leads the Grand Prix, extremely fast. He's pulled out a gap of about 3 seconds over Raikkonen. The third place man at the moment then will be the sister Williams of Ralf Schumacher.
Nick Heidfeld, we're being told by race control, has stopped out on the track. We saw him being pushed onto the grass. He has indeed stopped in the middle part of the lap somewhere. So unfortunately for him, that's the end of 2004, the early bath for Heidfeld. We wonder whether he might end up some part of Williams' plans in the future, whether as a race driver or perhaps a third driver, test driver. Certainly a pretty safe pair of hands, Nick Heidfeld. Time will tell. Just two retirements then. Jenson Button, engine failure, and Nick Heidfeld, who appears to have had a spin. 18 runners still going. Montoya leading this Grand Prix, and he's showing just exactly why Ron Dennis has hired him for next year to go into the McLaren team alongside Raikkonen. He believes they can really get the most out of Juan Montoya. Here we are on board then with Toyota of Jarno Trulli. He's changed his helmet design since his switch from the Renault team, and he's made a bit of a difference there, you'd have to say, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. I always think it sort of gives up some of your soul and character if you paint your helmet to match the car. But look at Trulli struggling around the left-hand corners. His head leaning absolutely over to the right-hand side. That is not natural at all. So no problems around the right-handers. But Trulli, surprisingly, appears to me to be already struggling, unless he's just leaning that way to save his neck for later on.
Possibly. Just look at the G-force effect on the driver's head here. Oh well, we cut away. but we'll hopefully see some more of that, and it really is dramatic. It's hard to imagine what that feels like until you've actually experienced it. It's like having some extremely strong person pushing your head to the side. You try and resist it, but well, it's very, very difficult. You need very strong neck muscles to drive one of these things. Rubens Barrichello, though, has just gone under 1 minute 12. First man to do so. That is a mesmerising pace. 1:11.986. Barrichello wants the win here. Villeneuve pits on lap 21. His first stop of the afternoon. He was in 8th place. That will drop him down to about 13th or 14th. Lap 22 of this 71-lap Brazilian Grand Prix, final race of the season. The man in form at the moment is very much Juan Montoya. He's leading this race by 4 seconds now from his teammate for next year, Kimi Raikkonen. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is third. Got a speed differential there. Montoya, he is really charging here. This is great to see. You can see why McLaren wanted him. They said yesterday, Ron Dennis said, we believe we can get so much more out of Juan Montoya than the Williams have managed to do. He's put a bit of weight on this season. He's had an up and down year. We believe we can really do something with this guy. He is a sensational driver, wonderful car control and so aggressive. And we're seeing all of that here this afternoon. Takuma Sato is 4th. 5th, the fastest man on the track at the moment, Rubens Barrichello. A 1:11.986 on that last lap. Mesmerising pace from him, but he is 17.5 seconds down on the race leader. Alonso is 6th, having led for much of the early phase. He took the gamble to start this race on dry tyres. It certainly seemed to work for him early on, and he's doing really well.
Schumacher has just been on 11.958. Barrichello's going to be 1:11.62. Enjoy this, because the cars are changing fundamentally for next year, and they're going to be quite a bit slower. And then 2.4 V8 engines for 2006. This could be the high point in terms of lap speeds. Yeah,
certainly could be. We're looking at 2 race engines for next year. They've got to last over 2 Grand Prix. They'll be qualifying on Saturday afternoon, again on Sunday morning, aggregate times, but 1 set of tyres to last an entire Grand Prix weekend, and a 30% cut in aerodynamic downforce. What does it all add up to? It adds up to about 4 to 5 seconds a lap slower than they're going at the moment. So you're looking at cars going back to the sort of pace they were showing back in sort of 2001, 2002. Just shows you the relentless progress in Formula One. And well, I'm sure they'll have to slow them down again in a few years' time, because they will claw back a lot of the aerodynamic performance, won't they, the engineers?
Yes, I remember going to a press conference where they reduced turbo boost, this is in the 80s, down to 2.5 bars. In the press conference, everybody laughed. They thought it was outrageous, and immediately the cars were faster the following year. We know how skillful the engineers are, and all of the instruments they have available to them with the wind tunnels and the data and simulation. They'll haul some of that back, but I have to say, this is a big change. Michael Schumacher we are on board with, and he's just 0.2 behind Alonso, who of course recently stopped, put a lot of fuel on board. Alonso is on course. I think he's nicely on schedule, how he anticipated his afternoon running. Renault's ran much further than anybody else. They were the last 2 to stop. Michael's prodigious straight line speed, not quite enough there to get past Fernando Alonso.
Yep, it's a terrific scrap though. You can see he's not going to give up. This is the corner where Schumacher had his accident on Saturday morning. He lost it there, the car snapped left, and he buried it into the barriers at over 120 miles an hour. Mark Webber, oh no! A sad end to his career with the Jaguar team. He's knocked the front wing off, presumably trying to pass. Oh no! That's just what they didn't need. What a sorry way to end Jaguar's adventure in Formula One, and it's not been a successful adventure by any stretch of the imagination, and that is as bad as it gets, hitting your own teammate.
Yeah, Mark will be extremely sad about that. not as sad, I imagine, as the bosses of the team. I was talking to Dave Pitchfork and Tony Fennell. They said, oh, just for the boys have kept their chin up. They've been so brilliant. We want the cars to finish. And, well, that is worst case scenario.
Certainly is. Jaguar pulling out of Formula 1, but they are going to stay, keep some initiatives alive. They sponsor a program called F1 in Schools, which is designed to get young school children interested in engineering. It's a wonderful concept, and they're going to continue to sponsor them and bring young engineers into Formula 1 in the future. Well, Ted's down in the Jaguar garage. It must be a pretty sorry atmosphere, I would imagine.
Oh, it's terrible. The arms went up, shaking their heads. They cannot believe it. Furious scenes on the pit wall. They're actually coming out into the box to see if Mark can make it back. In fact, Christian Klein is also coming back. See if they can get him back out in the race, salvage some kind of result from this sorry Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, Mark, you wouldn't have seen it, Ted, as you were hunting down the Jaguar people. Mark out of the car and on the side of the racetrack. Klein, as you say, in the pits for a new nose. And, well, Mark's done a brilliant job for the Jaguar team. I have to say, that's the last thing I thought he'd do.
Yeah, really, really strange. But there we are. I don't think he's got an awful lot of time for Christian Klein. Doesn't have a huge amount of respect for him, possibly, and I think he was trying to press on a little bit. Who knows? We're looking, though, back from the car of Fernando Alonso. That's Michael Schumacher, 7 times world champion, and he started down in 18th place this afternoon. He has got himself up into 7th, and he really would like very much to get past this Renault of Fernando Alonso, who's carrying quite a lot of fuel at this stage of the Grand Prix. Look how the Ferrari engine allows him to get closer. Then the bite point of those brakes on the Renault means it stops. Schumacher has to react and stop as well. He's adjusting all the time the brake bias in the cockpit of that car. He's working really, really hard, Michael Schumacher, to try and make something of this afternoon. This is lap 26. Montoya is still leading, and we've got a Minardi in the pits. That's Zolt Baumgartner making his 2nd stop of the afternoon. Whoa! Very close exit for Montoya, right up behind Ricardo Zonta, another Brazilian driver in this field, and that just shows you how hard Montoya is charging this afternoon.
Zonta goes a lap down then, and is that a crane moving there, or just a TV camera sweeping past the crane? Whatever it is. But Ralf Schumacher pits then in the Williams from what was 3rd place, and it's going to take some keeping hold of this strategy this afternoon with all of the different tyre change points. For example, Michael Schumacher pitted on lap 5 and took 6 seconds worth of fuel. Alonso pitted on lap 18 and took 9 seconds worth of fuel, but they're running line astern on the racetrack. It's going to unfold completely differently to how it looks at the moment.
Certainly is. Just to give you some sort of measure, what Alonso is doing is what they would have done in a normal dry race. Gone to around about lap 17 or 18, and then either gone for a 2-stop strategy, which would bring them in around the mid-40s, or perhaps a little bit less fuel at the first stop would have taken them through to mid-30s, and then again the mid-50s on a 3-stop strategy. So obviously, having stopped much earlier than that, lap 5 or 6 for most of the runners, their strategies have been changed. We'll try and keep on top of them. Alonso's the one who's doing what we would expect, and which is also incidentally the fastest way to do the Grand Prix, so he's looking quite clever at the moment.
Montoya lapping in the mid-12s now through the traffic. Strange then, working with Villeneuve and Coulthard 11th and 12th, lapping in the 14th. Don't know if something happened if the yellow flag will be to recover, presumably to recover Mark Webber's Jaguar. Got a good scrap going on, Villeneuve and Coulthard. Sato and Barrichello pit then at the end of lap 27.
From 3rd and 4th places respectively. There's Barrichello, was 4th. Is he going to get ahead of Sato? Well, Sato's just pulling out down the pit lane. Barrichello was behind him, so he will not have got out in front of Takuma Sato. In the Ferrari pit box, the first one in sequence here in Brazil, and VAR being about 150 metres further down the pit lane. Montoya then on lap 28, just set the fastest first sector of anybody in the Grand Prix so far. We have, and the second sector as well. We've got a yellow flag out on track. You're not ideally placed to go too quick with the yellow flags out, but Montoya, that's why he was going quick. He's coming into the pits.
So really the first scheduled stop of the afternoon, and it's not driven by being on the wrong tyres, and Ted is down there as ever.
Williams tell me that he's been having trouble seeing. The inside of his visor, Martin, has missed it up. It's just started to spit again with rain, so they've been trying to get a cloth in there to wipe the inside of his visor, but a decent stop for Montoya.
Yes, and it tends to mist up even more. You're sweating heavily inside the car, and as soon as you stop the airflow coming through, it gets worse and worse. This is the fight I was telling you about. 11th and 12th, Villeneuve and Coulthard, now back down into the 12s again. I think they just came across some traffic.
Yeah, they're good friends, these two. David Coulthard very happy to see Jacques Villeneuve back in Formula One. They put their motorhomes next to each other at European races. Michael Schumacher pits from 5th place. Kimi Raikkonen is the new race leader because of that stop for Montoya just a moment ago. Kimi Raikkonen leading, the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, trying to make it 2 victories in the season to give McLaren something to smile about going into the winter break after such a difficult start to the season. There's Jarno Trulli in the Toyota. He really has made a difference since he came across with the last 3 Grand Prix of the season. Very quick qualifying lap yesterday, and you can tell already that the team are just more up on the balls of their feet. They know they've got a really quick racing driver now, and when Ralf Schumacher joins next season, well, they really are hoping to move forward. There's the race leader then, into the pits on lap 30, Kimi Raikkonen.
Montoya meanwhile just left the pits and done the fastest middle sector on his out lap. He's on it. And we saw Montoya, looked like his clutch was just about trying to bite as he was leaving his stop. Raikkonen had no such problems as we watched him go away. Montoya then now leads the Grand Prix from Alonso, Ralf Schumacher. Michael Schumacher's left the pits, showing 5th. I suspect he's a little bit down from that. He is indeed. So Sato's up to 5th then. Barrichello 6th, Massa 7th. Trulli has pitted as well. So Fisichella then up to 8th, Villeneuve 9th, Coulthard 10th.
Well, it's certainly been an eventful Grand Prix, and we haven't even reached half distance yet. 42 laps still to go, and this is shaping up to be a terrific scrap here between Takuma Sato and Rubens Barrichello. Nice onboard shots here from Rubens' car. Montoya back into the lead then after Raikkonen just stayed out a lap longer than him on the fuel for the second scheduled stop of the afternoon. And well, he's just done a 1:11.644, Montoya. Fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. You'd have to say that it doesn't appear that Ferrari and Bridgestone have any kind of pace advantage here this afternoon in this Grand Prix, because whatever Rubens Barrichello can do in terms of mesmerising lap times, it seems that both Kimi Raikkonen and particularly Juan Montoya can do it as well. And well, this bodes well for a very eventful second half to this race. You can see the car is jumping about. As Martin said, he set the fastest middle sector of the Grand Prix of anybody so far on his out lap, full of fuel, brand new tyres. That's how hard he's pushing.
3 retirements then, 17 runners. Webber we saw running into his teammate and then tobogganing off on his own nose, his own front wing I should say. Heidfeld, mechanical problems in the transmission, spun him off the road in the middle of the lap, turn 10 in fact. Jenson Button, electrical fire on the grid that eventually he succumbed to very early on in the race. On board Ralf Schumacher, just a half a second shy then of 3rd place man Fernando Alonso.
Terrific onboard shots from Ralf Schumacher. A few spots of rain just starting to hit the camera. Are we about to get into another drizzly phase? It certainly looks like it. Just looking out of our commentary box window, yes, I can see it's drizzling quite steadily now. And this will play into the hands of the Michelin teams for as long as they can stay out there on the track. The drizzle doesn't affect them as much as it affects the Bridgestone. So Barrichello bidding to become only the 4th Brazilian to win his home Grand Prix. Down in 6th place at the moment, will not be happy to see a few spots of rain at this point. Out of 71 here at Interlagos, Brazil. Montoya leading Raikkonen, Alonso, Ralf Schumacher 4th, Sato 5th, Barrichello 6th, and the 2 Saubers, Massa and Fisichella. What a strong season they have had. Sauber making tremendous progress this year. We're riding on board with Rubens Barrichello. who is some distance now behind Takuma Sato. And if you think that looks like a few spots of rain on the camera lens, you would be right, because it's just started drizzling again here in Sao Paulo. We started this race with that. Look, Sato's made a mistake. He's run wide on the greasy track, and that's a gift, yet another gift for Rubens Barrichello. He is through into 5th place. And well, as I was just about to say, we started this Grand Prix with heavy drizzle. It then dried out very quickly. The track went bone dry, and the Michelin runners looked to have the upper hand. Montoya, Raikkonen, Alonso, Ralf Schumacher. But now it's starting to drizzle again, and the picture will change once more. It's not really affecting the lap times too much at the moment, although actually Juan Montoya on the first sector had a bit of a messy first sector, a bit of a messy second sector. This has not been a good lap for Montoya. He's given away a lot of time here. The rest of them, though, don't seem to have lost too much time.
Now, Montoya was on the traction control for about 100 metres out of that slow corner. I think that demonstrates just how tacky it's getting out there, how slippery. It's a 1:15.8. It's 3 seconds slower than he went the lap before, to give you an idea of how slippery it's getting. The track temperature is 25, exactly the same as the ambient temperature, so I don't think it'll burn off very quickly. That's Sato out braking himself into turn 1 and releasing Rubens Barrichello up into 5th place. Barrichello 19 seconds behind Montoya. That's interesting. He's doing 1:13, so Montoya did have a poor lap. You're absolutely right, James.
Yeah, he did. The others are all lapping in the 1:13s. A second and a half slower than the fastest lap we've seen so far, but quite a few of them are carrying a reasonable amount of fuel at this stage in the Grand Prix. So yes, there's drizzle, but no, it's not really affecting lap times too much at the moment. You can see that Massa is not even thinking about going for any kind of wet or intermediate tyre on that stop. He goes back out on dry, so clearly they don't feel it's going to last.
Schumacher's quiet, isn't he? He's down in 9th place. I think they're early 1:13. It's pretty solid pace, you have to say, but 5.5 seconds he was behind Massa before Massa just stopped. So Michael, quite quiet out there at the moment.
Well, we've lost 3 drivers at the moment in the Grand Prix: Mark Webber, Jenson Button, and Nick Heidfeld. And Nick is talking with Louise Goodman now.
He is indeed, James. Nick, transmission failure, disappointing end to the race, disappointing end to what's not been the best season for you on the whole, has it?
Yeah, definitely. I hope to end this race on a high, if you can say so. Wanted to give the team a good race. We hope for rain. It did rain in the beginning, now it's just drizzling, so I always hope for, you always hope for a very good last race. It's a disappointment for sure.
Let's look forward to next year. There's been talk of you maybe in a Williams. What can you tell us?
I don't know a lot about that, really. I mean, I hope that I have a chance there. I nearly had a test there in the summer, and it would be great if they give me a chance.
Thanks, Nick.
I understand Nick may well be on the list. I think he'll probably mostly be hoping that some teams have to run a third car. I think that's looking less and less likely, it seems, as this weekend has unfortunately been changing hour by hour. Regulations, teams staying in, teams up for sale, and then amazing weekend. Never seen anything like it.
My head is spinning, I tell you. I was here till 7:30 last night listening to these new cost-saving proposals put together by 9 of the Formula 1 team principals. They didn't get Jean Todt of Ferrari to sign it, but Todd says he wasn't invited to the meeting where the proposals were drawn up, so quite a bit of confusion there going on. But the idea being that the teams are saying, OK, we'll do an 18th and 19th race in the French Grand Prix and the British Grand Prix, but in return we've got to shorten the race weekends a little bit. Just make Friday a test day, and we'll have quali and race on Saturday and Sunday in return for that. We only want to cut testing back to 10 days during the season. Ferrari own 2 test tracks. They do testing pretty much 9 to 5 days a week, and they really do not want to do that. So a little bit of a standoff there amongst the team principals.
Yes, but what was most interesting for me about that, James, is one of the 9 signatories, of course, was Peter Sauber, who very much is sort of seen as a Ferrari B team and falls into line normally with what Ferrari want. But he is desperate to get these testing reductions and cost savings. So as I said to Max on the start line, I was really surprised that the teams have been so heads into this, had all year to get this together. Why in the middle of a full-blown Grand Prix are they rushing around signing pieces of paper? Mistakes will be made, they'll make bad decisions, but at least they're now making some decisions.
It's a bit like the spirit of revolution which swept France in the late 1800s and other countries along the way. Once the momentum starts, it does tend to get going. And what has been remarkable, I think, about this development this weekend is that 9 of the 10 teams have signed it. It really is a very strong statement. it's slightly unfair to paint Ferrari into a corner and say, well, if they don't sign this, there won't be a French and British Grand Prix, so it's up to them to save Silverstone. I don't think that's a really fair way to look at it, because we all know that the man who sets Grand Prix is Bernie Ecclestone, not Ferrari. But nevertheless, into the winter, it certainly will continue to roll on. Here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, we are at half distance in this really very entertaining Grand Prix season finale. Juan Montoya is 5 seconds ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, with Fernando Alonso third, 16 seconds behind the race leader. Nice on-board shot. Fernando Alonso running in third place, trying to get another podium here this season. Started the championship with a podium in Melbourne, Australia. Hasn't managed to record a win this year as he did last year, but a long way to go yet here in this Grand Prix. He's got Ralf Schumacher just over a second behind him in fourth place, and Rubens Barrichello another couple of seconds back from that. So as you can see there, 4 big names in Formula One, all circulating pretty close together. Alonso, Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, and then Takuma Sato just behind them as well. Michael Schumacher having a very quiet afternoon by his standards, down in 7th place. And he's got a healthy margin over Jacques Villeneuve and David Coulthard, who are still battling it out for 8th and 9th places. Villeneuve would dearly love to score a point here this afternoon. The moment he's on target to do so, Coulthard would love to end his association with McLaren with a point as well. Let's not forget, those two started this Grand Prix on the dry tyres, as did Fernando Alonso. But well, Alonso had a slightly better grid slot. He was 2 rows ahead of Coulthard and Villeneuve, and he's currently got 6 cars between himself and Coulthard. So you'd have to say that Alonso's performance as the leading man on the dry tyres at the start has been very, very impressive indeed.
Still only 3 retirements then, James. Once again, good reliability. I had a feeling it was electrical from Jenson Button. It was black smoke. You know, normally if it's an engine, isn't it, it's either white smoke or blue smoke. So something overheating quite clearly there. Everything is packaged so tightly today on a Formula 1 car. It's so marginal with its cooling and the way that it functions, and quite clearly something wrong from the get-go on Jenson Button's VAR.
Well, the 2 Saubers have drifted back. They've both made 2 stops. Of course, starting on the dry tyres has helped Villeneuve and Coulthard to get in front of them. Second half of this Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you, Luis Goodman and Ted Kravitz down in the pit lane. You're riding on board with the second place Kimi Raikkonen. He's 5 seconds behind Juan Montoya on his final outing for the BMW Williams team, trying to get just his 4th victory in 4 seasons with the team. A balance sheet which you'd have to say is not all that brilliant, considering the promise that Montoya had, how good a car Williams had on and off over the period, but they really have fallen behind Ferrari in the time that Montoya has been there. Only really last year when Montoya did have a chance of winning the World Championship. He's won a race this year. He'd love to win the final one in South America here, and well, he's over halfway there. Raikkonen looking racy. Alonso has driven wonderfully here. He took the gamble to start this Grand Prix and heavy drizzle on dry tyres, and it really worked for him. He was 8th on the grid, but he led for most of the opening segment, and he is now in a podium position in 3rd. Ralf Schumacher also played the rain and the tyre changes cannily and got himself up from 7th place to 4th. Rubens Barrichello looking for the home victory. He was quick early on, but stayed out a little bit too long on the intermediate Bridgestone tyres, paid the price, and he is down into 5th place at the moment. Takuma Sato then is 6 seconds behind him, with Michael Schumacher having a very quiet afternoon by his standards. Once again, ending the season on a rather a low note as he did last year, but it's been a season all about Schumacher this year.
He's just started to squeeze on it though, James. Got into the 11s now. He's fastest man on the track last time around by 3 or 4 tenths. He's just 12 seconds behind Barrichello now, given he had a spin as well. So Michael's just beginning to, we're not seeing the incredible pace as we did back in China, but just seeing Michael beginning to unleash that Ferrari as the race unfolds. We've got a slightly neutral period to the race now. They all pitted, the key runners pitted somewhere between laps 25 and 29. They're appearing to be able to do about 20 to 22 laps on the amount of fuel they're happy to carry. So we're heading towards some more pit stops in the next few laps. But it's pretty much Linus Montoya, 5 seconds ahead of Raikkonen, lapping at the same speed. Alonso is 13 seconds behind Raikkonen in 3rd place, but we think he's fueled up to only have to stop one more time. And we didn't get all of the pit stops. There were so many pit stops going on that it is difficult to know exactly how much each and every one of them put in their car. We know McLaren are out there again now, ready to receive one of their drivers. First man in last time around was Kimi Raikkonen, but it's Coulthard coming in this time, we think.
Yeah, well, because he made one very late stop, having started the Grand Prix on dry tyres, so he's gone quite a distance then on that fuel load they put in at his first pit stop, and here he is. Probably his final pit stop, final service from the McLaren crew. They've looked after him very well over the years. They've won 12 races together. They love him. Sad to see him go in every sense. Coulthard accelerates down the pit lane for the final segment of his career with McLaren.
Yes, that looked like enough fuel, didn't it, to get him the final 28-29 laps. Montoya's lead down to 4.8 seconds now. Raikkonen nibbling away at that. Alonso still hanging on, still lapping quickly in 3rd. It's shaping up for a great final run in, isn't it, to the checkered flag?
Certainly is. It's been an afternoon when the Michelin tyres and the Bridgestone tyres has not been a great deal to choose between them. The Ferrari, the Williams, the McLaren. It's not been a typical Grand Prix in 2004 sense, because 2004 has been so utterly dominated by Ferrari, who come here looking for their 16th win of the season. If they were able to achieve it, it would be a record. McLaren won 15 back in 1988. The great Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost sharing out the spoils between them. It's been mostly Schumacher with a little bit of Barrichello this year, but the final race of the season is showing a different picture. It's showing a more even picture amongst the front runners. That's got a little bit to do with the fact that Ferrari haven't developed their car since the summer, but it's what we like to see. It's competitive Formula One racing, and we're really enjoying it. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Bit of frustration down at Williams, James, with Ralf Schumacher. He's trying so hard to get past Fernando Alonso, but just can't get anywhere close. What he's saying, I'm told over the radio, is that Alonso's traction is just so much better, and he just boots it out of the last corner. Ralf can't get anywhere near.
Well, we know how good that Renault is away from the start line, and particularly the second phase of the start. That's all about traction too. They seem to have quite a rearwards weight distribution that gives them that good grip, and I think that's why you often see the Renault with a lot of understeer. But what Ralf means is he's taking 20-30 metres out of me on the way out of a corner. Means I can do nothing before the end of the next straight. Alonso then happily going round in 3rd place. Ralf though 1.8 seconds behind him, so just about in his dirty air, but hardly menacing his mirrors.
Certainly not. Riding on board with Montoya. Just look at the way the G-forces affect his head. Look, pushing his head to the opposite direction. He's turning left, the head's being pushed to the right. Big G's being pulled around this circuit. It really does stretch the driver's neck, and it's an unusual track as well in that it runs in an anti-clockwise direction, so there are more left-hand turns than there are right-handers, and generally speaking most tracks are designed the other way around. They're more rights than left. So this particular stretch here up the hill, left they go, puts a massive strain on the driver's neck. Some of them need to have restraining belts to help make sure their heads don't pull away too far to the side. And I've had the good fortune to ride in a two-seater Formula One car driven by Fernando Alonso around Donington, and I couldn't believe how much of a strain it put on my neck. We were only doing 5 laps, sort of 5-6 seconds off the pace of a normal Formula One car, but still it hurt like heck even after 2 or 3 laps.
It does. We used to wear a block on the side of our helmet to lean against the car, but you're not allowed to do that in case it affects the way the helmet and the padding works in the event of a big lateral accident, big sideways into the barrier accident. But Alonso, Ralf Schumacher and Barrichello, 3rd, 4th and 5th, now just 2.7 seconds adrift. Look, you can see them all in your screen, and Louise is down at Jaguar.
Yeah, I am, Martin. A lot of heavy hearts down here, as you can imagine. Their main man, Mark Webber, out of the race. To make matters worse, it was teammate Christian Klein that he tangled with at turn 1. In fact, that's where Mark is still at the moment, sitting on the grass on the outside of the corner, just watching the other cars go by. Maybe he's working out what to say to the guys when he gets back. They, meanwhile, are all sitting slumped in the floor of the garage. This was always going to be a difficult race for Webber and for the Jaguar team, and it couldn't have ended in a worse fashion for Mark.
Yeah, well, I'll avoid making any kind of reference to the donkey, but I wonder if he'd been in the cockpit of the car, whether things might have been a bit different. That was a very unfortunate collision a few laps ago between Mark Webber, and you can see him sitting on the right there, Mark Webber, just his little green overalls on the outside of turn 1, just watching the unfolding action, wishing that he was part of it. One of the best drivers in Formula 1, undoubtedly. Bright future in front of him. Was riding on board there with Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, whose neck has gone. Did you notice? As soon as he turned in, even to turn 4, which is not one of the toughest corners around here, neck straight over to the side of the cockpit. Remember, we were talking about this incredible lap record breaking, lap after lap pace. It's really taken its toll on the drivers.
Webber sitting there watching this action, and he'll be pleased with what he sees, because this car here, leading the race by almost 5 seconds, is the car that he will be driving in the winter tests starting in November. He'll get behind the wheel of this very car with the BMW engine, start to get some idea of where that car is at as a reference, and then throughout the winter with the 2005 spec car, very, very different, 30% drop in aerodynamic downforce on that car. He will have something to compare it to. A very heavy test program in store for him, and he'll be feeling good about it. Jarno Trulli then, he'll be staying with Toyota next year. He makes his 3rd stop of the afternoon.
We had to report, because it was the case, of just how much slower Villeneuve was than Alonso in the Japanese and Chinese Grand Prix. It is not the case today. He's been matching Alonso's pace all the way through the Grand Prix, and often a tenth or two faster. We hear that the Jaguar team are preparing for the final stop of the afternoon, their final stop for a while. Never say never. They'll be back in Formula 1, but at the moment, of course, the Jaguar name is going to disappear. The man I was just talking about, Villeneuve, in the pits then for his final stop of the afternoon, and of course his final stop for Renault as well, I'd imagine. He's off to Sauber next year.
Yeah, he's doing a good job today, Jacques Villeneuve. Came in for a bit of heat for his performances in China and Japan. Japan wasn't really his fault. It was such an extraordinary weekend with such heavy rain on Friday, and then the typhoon threat, which cancelled all the action on Saturday. He really had no time whatsoever to set the car up. So it wasn't really his fault, but here this weekend at Interlagos, he's done a very good job. He's just made a pit stop. Alonso, his teammate, is coming into the pits in the sister Renault. He was 5th. Villeneuve pitted from 8th place.
Those metal strips, you saw him running over there to earth the car out to make sure there are no sparks to set fire to the refuelling rig, and they just pop up in the air. Of course, carbon is a good conductor. Montoya leads Raikkonen by 5.1 seconds. They're just trading tenths here and there. Ralf Schumacher's 20 seconds behind his teammate now in 3rd place.
Yeah, Ralf was very impressive as well in Japan 2 weeks ago. Really very, very good indeed, chasing down his brother Michael. And if you look at the lap times for Ralf Schumacher, they were absolutely sensational. Williams then qualifying for the last 2 Grand Prix of the season on the front row of the grid, leading here in Brazil, having finished 2nd with Ralf Schumacher in Japan. You have to say that it's been a strong end to the season for the BMW Williams team. I think what happened last year is they were very quick, and I think they underestimated how much of that speed was the Michelin tyre and how much of it was their car. So into the winter they didn't make as much progress as they should have done or hoped to do. Started the season with not a very good car by their own admission. Sam Michael, the technical director, has admitted it. They made some very bad choices on the aerodynamics and the design. There's Ralf Schumacher pitting for 4th place, but they went away to think about it, and the second half of this year, as Ralf tries to go a little bit early, second half of this year, this car has got better and better. And Ted Kravitz is down in the pits.
That was very unfortunate for Ralf Schumacher. He tried to go too early, the fuel hose was still on, and he's of course in this battle with Fernando Alonso. Let's wait to see if he's managed to get past him, although I think that mistake will scupper it.
Okay, Ted, thanks for that. We didn't quite catch that on the screen. So when is Montoya coming in? Quite clearly now. They can all get by with just one more stop. Ralph's made his third stop of the afternoon, as has David. Well, David Coulthard's only 2 stopping today, but Montoya sets a new lap record. He's getting very close to that pit stop, a 1:11.473. That's 3.4 seconds under the record.
He's also getting very, very close to the limit of this car. Did you see how the front of it just jagged about into turn 1? He's absolutely flying. They call him the monster. He is totally monstering this car, the place where he started to make his name in Formula 1, a dramatic pass on Michael Schumacher in 2001. Here's Rubens Barrichello, started the day from pole, looking for the home victory. He was third before he made that pit stop. Doesn't look as though it's going to happen for Rubens Barrichello this afternoon. He's fueled to the finish. It's really between Montoya and Raikkonen, I think, for who's going to win this Grand Prix. Both super aggressive racers. And, well, we're heading, I think, for a very exciting conclusion to this final race of the championship. On board with Montoya, up the hill, pulling up to about 185 miles an hour, 190 miles an hour, the pit entrance on our left. We dive down it, cut the speed, 100 kilometers an hour, down, up over the rise, set the speed limiter. You get his thumb on the button, making sure he doesn't speed in the pit lane, into the box. Mechanics go to work. Tyres off. Fuel going in behind us. Like clockwork for the Williams team. They desperately want their first win of 2004, and that is a well-oiled Grand Prix outfit.
It is indeed. Well, we've got a South American looking like he's going to win this Grand Prix. It's not the South American that the fans wanted, though, is it? They want Barrichello, and they want Massa doing the job out there, but Montoya is the fastest thing that we've seen so far on an outright lap, and of course the Grand Prix so far. The third Brazilian in the Grand Prix then, Zonta. Michael Schumacher pits from what was 4th place.
So Kimi Raikkonen leading the Grand Prix. Schumacher for the final time this season. Championship wrapped up long ago. 1 or 2 mistakes in the closing stages of this season, which he will certainly go away and think about. You always, as a racing driver, Martin, I imagine, want to end the season as strongly as you possibly can to give yourself a confidence boost going into the winter. Kimi Raikkonen pitted before the 1 lap after Montoya last time round. This time he's going a little bit longer on the fuel, which is going to be interesting. So does he have enough fuel in this car to put in a few quick laps and try and vault Montoya at his own final pit stop, I wonder?
Well, he had 5 seconds to make up, so it'll be a pretty spectacular effort. I could see him making 1 or 2 of those, but let's see how the traffic plays out.
Raikkonen can do 2, 3, 4 laps, he might have half a chance, and you can see, oh dear, the well, not quite so well oiled there for the Minardi team, walking away, because it can be very painful if you get pulled over by one of those fuel hoses, as Ferrari's Nigel Stepney will tell you. He broke his foot in an incident just like that a few years ago.
You see the guys that are the 2 heavy guys they put on there. You and I probably couldn't lift that fuel rig, James, and amazingly heavy. And how often do we see them getting stuck? I think if you don't pull them exactly the right angle, they don't want to come out.
Raikkonen across the line. This has been a quick lap for him. He's trying very, very hard here. That's his fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, a 1:11.5. Montoya is under pressure here. The longer Raikkonen stays out with very low fuel on these tyres, which are obviously working for him. Look at his neck being pulled over to the side. He's resting it on the side of the cockpit. Huge strain on their necks here, but Montoya does a 1:12.7, so that's 1.2 seconds of Montoya's lead that Raikkonen has taken out just on that lap alone. Plus the lap before, of course, Montoya making his pit stop. How much longer can Raikkonen go here? Can he go long enough to take over the lead of the Grand Prix for Montoya when he makes his stop at some point in the next few laps?
2 wheels on the grass while we've been watching this fight for the lead. Ralf Schumacher has got ahead of Fernando Alonso, only by 1/10 of a second last time they crossed the line, but Schumacher with the faster car. Now he's repassed him. Ralph's had a slow lap, so we're not watching any of that, unfortunately. I can see it on the computer here. Alonso back up to P5. How long will it be before Kimi Raikkonen has to pit? Clean pits, Louise, is there.
Yeah, the last pit stop of the Brazilian Grand Prix for Christian Klein, the last ever pit stop for the Jaguar team. They're not going to have much to celebrate, no points, but the boys have stood out in front of the garage. They're waving him off. Nice touch, Guy.
Very nice touch indeed. An act of good humour from one of the best humoured teams of mechanics in Formula One. They really are super guys. There'll be a little tear in one or two eyes there. There's David McMillan, known as Nessie there, one of the truckies, one of the best spirited. Even though he's an Everton fan, I really like him. And he just waves there. And it's goodbye from Jaguar.
Let's just hope in the next 7 days somebody buys that team. It's not out of the question. Let's just hope somehow they can get it done. Time frame, they're all painted in the corner so heavily though on the time frame and engine supply. But let's hope they find a way this week.
Lap 54, Raikkonen continuing his relentless progress. While we were having a sentimental moment with the Jaguar team, Raikkonen is still pushing very, very hard indeed. He's got 18.8 seconds advantage over Juan Montoya. His last lap was competitive. Montoya's again was over a second slower.
And now is this, Ralf outbreak. This is how Alonso got back past Ralf Schumacher. Schumacher took it on the pit stops, then outbraked himself into turn one. Alonso nipping nicely around the inside.
There goes Kimi Raikkonen. How much longer is he going to stay out? He's certainly trying very hard. That last lap has just gone through about 6/10 slower than the one before for him, but nevertheless keeping the pressure up on Juan Montoya. He's taken it out to over 19 seconds now, the margin.
Yeah, so what's he done? He had a 5-second deficit, didn't he? He must have got 3 of those already as Sato pits out of 3rd place in the BAR Honda. Raikkonen doing everything he can. Is it enough? It's going to be all... Of course, he'll need a slightly less fuel than Montoya. He's gone further. He needs less fuel to get to the end. They'll have less time with the nozzle on. But we're talking tenths as Sato rejoins.
He's going to need about 20-21 seconds. He's very, very close here, Kimi Raikkonen. Montoya needs to up the pace a little bit. He took half a second out of him on that last lap.
McLaren out, James. I'm looking out of the window. McLaren out. We know Coulthard stopped. Raikkonen takes the tight line into the pits, and that is scary. It made me draw breath when Montoya went through there flat out with the end of the pit wall steering him. I thought Montoya attacked that line harder than that, Ted.
McLaren need a brilliant pit stop, and I'm not sure that it's going to be enough. The tyres are on, the fuel hose is on, no problem. It comes up. That's a very quick pit stop.
So it could decide the outcome of this Grand Prix as Raikkonen gets back up to speed. The question is, where is Juan Montoya? We're looking at a different battle. The race director has not understood what's going on here. Juan Montoya is out on track somewhere. Kimi Raikkonen has rejoined, and well, if he's not ahead of Juan Montoya, the two will be very, very close together on the racetrack. That's for absolutely sure, and they'll be duking it out for the last 16 laps. We're being told that Montoya is ahead. We haven't seen it yet on the TV pictures. We're being told that though.
Yeah, Montoya cut the end of the first sector timing beam before Raikkonen did, so I'd be pretty confident, actually by about a couple of seconds. Raikkonen couldn't quite make the difference. We're on board with Michael Schumacher chasing down his brother, who's also very close behind Sato. This is what we were expecting as we move towards the final laps of the Grand Prix. Michael just steadily building pace all the way through.
So there you go. That is the confirmation that the race is now led by Juan Montoya. Raikkonen stayed out to try and get the lead. It wasn't quite enough, but you can see he cut that 5-second margin down considerably by that McLaren strategy that nearly did it for him, but he perhaps needed another lap, possibly 2, to make it stick. Well, he's now just 1.4 seconds behind the race leader Juan Montoya. 3rd is Barrichello, 4th Alonso. He is at the head of a really exciting train. Alonso, Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher, 4 drivers separated by just over a second. We've got 15 laps of excitement to go here in Sao Paulo. cars still running in this Grand Prix. I told you about that train of cars battling for 4th place, 4th to 7th. Then Massa is 8th, Fisichella is in 9th place, 10th is Villeneuve, 11th Coulthard, 12th Jarno Trulli, 13th Ricardo Zonta, 14th Christian Klien, having been hit by his teammate Mark Webber earlier on in the Grand Prix. Timo Glock, we haven't seen him on the screen all afternoon, but he's been battling away in 15th place for the Jordan team. His teammate Nick Heidfeld is out of the Grand Prix with a transmission failure earlier on, and then running at the back, but still reliable, the two Minardis of Zsolt Baumgartner and Gian-Maria Bruni. Baumgartner almost 11 seconds ahead of teammate Bruni, and well, if he's done nothing else this season, Baumgartner, he's shown that he's perhaps certainly a match for, and on occasions on his day, better than Gian-Maria Bruni. He is actually the only Minardi driver to have scored points. Bit of a lock-up there for Fernando Alonso. That's Takuma Sato we're looking at in the BAR Honda behind. You can see how hard that Alonso is pushing.
Raikkonen now just 1.1 seconds adrift. Amazing, really pushing hard. Much quicker last time around than leader Montoya. They dropped Barrichello. He's 21 seconds adrift, so it's a straight fight for 1st and 2nd. Barrichello appears to have 3rd, very much in the bag. Alonso has had poor pace in the second half of the Grand Prix, and that is why he's under pressure from Takuma Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher.
There we are on board with the sole remaining BAR Honda, Takuma Sato. Let's see how his neck muscles are holding up after 59 laps of this Grand Prix. Not looking too bad at all. He's a very fit lad, is Takuma Sato. Started out his sporting career, interestingly enough, as a cyclist. And, well, they don't get much fitter than Tour de France type cyclists. He's only a little guy, but he packs a big punch, does Takuma Sato. And one of the best overtakers in the business. He will be looking to make a pass on Fernando Alonso when the opportunity presents itself. Lap 59 of the 71-lap Brazilian Grand Prix, the final Grand Prix of the 2004 Formula One World Championship. James Allen, Martin Brundle with you. We're riding on board with Michael Schumacher. He's in 7th place. He's the 4th car in a 4-car train, a battle for 4th place between Alonso, Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher. And here at the front, we've got a fabulous scrap now between Juan Montoya and Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen, in the last 2 laps, has taken a second out of the lead of Juan Montoya, and we're going to have a grandstand finish here in Sao Paulo, because these two are amongst the feistiest and most aggressive racers in Formula One. They'll be teammates next year in the McLaren Mercedes squad, and neither of them wants to go into the winter having had to give way, to give second best to the other. It's a great psychological scrap, this.
It is indeed. I've been looking at the straight line speeds at various parts of the racetrack. The Williams is a fraction faster, a kilometre or 2 per hour. But if Raikkonen can get that McLaren into the slipstream in this corner, Juncao at the foot of the long climb up the hill, he's got the faster car, no doubt about it. At this stage of the Grand Prix, he can have a look up the inside, but he's got to get close enough. And that is what's so hard. You can get through Mergullo, the long left bumpy corner before the final turn in somebody else's slipstream. There's enough grip. That final one is so tricky, but Raikkonen, the gap's gone up to 0.7 now. He lost a little bit of time. He is in that turbulent air. Barrichello seems to have 3rd place sorted out. He's 20 seconds behind these two. Alonso has had poor pace in the second half of the Grand Prix, and that is why he's 4th and under pressure from Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher, 4th, 5th and 6th and 7th.
Well, the balance sheet for these two, no win this season so far for Juan Montoya. 1 victory for this man here, Kimi Raikkonen, the Belgian Grand Prix at the end of August. Can he make it 2, or is Montoya going to get his first victory and only his 4th in his Williams career? This is going to be a very exciting conclusion to this Grand Prix. Ted Kravitz has a little news for us on the Ferrari team.
Very long faces at Ferrari, James. Rubens Barrichello, the pole sitter, made up 2 places at the last pit stop, but since then he just hasn't been fast enough. In fact, over the course of the race has not been fast enough to make the difference. So big disappointment with Rubinho down here at Ferrari.
His pace is solid and it's quicker than Michael's pace, so they just haven't got. Remember, Pierre Dupasquet from Michelin said to us yesterday, as far as he's concerned, his tyres were better around here in dry conditions. As you said earlier in the programme, James, it certainly seems to be the case, doesn't it? So we've got Michelin first, second, Barrichello third for Bridgestone, but he has lost that 20 seconds through sheer pace alone.
Yeah, we're just looking there at one of the Toyotas putting a lap on the Minardi. That was not for position, that was a one-lap move. We've got just 9 laps to go then here in Brazil, and Juan Montoya has been pushing so very hard all afternoon. We've seen the car at attitudes. He has got tremendous car control, this young man. He's coming up to lap Christian Klein. That means he's lapped everyone up to 15. Klein is in 14th place at the moment. Final race for Jaguar. Just look at the body language of these cars. Raikkonen leading his head over to the right-hand side through that long corner, letting the air get into the airbox above his head for maximum horsepower. Around about 950 brake horsepower nowadays from these Formula One engines.
That's 3 consecutive laps that Montoya has been a tenth or two faster. The gap now back up to 1.1. Raikkonen's early charge is fading. Has he got anything left? Can he dig a little bit deeper? Traffic coming up, the leader always seems to lose a little bit more than the pursuer in these circumstances. The blue flags nowadays certainly eases their path though.
Well, it's been a long season here, the longest in Formula One history. Michael Schumacher won the first 5 Grand Prix of the season, and he crashed in the tunnel at Monte Carlo dramatically, and Jarno Trulli won the race for the Renault team. Then Schumacher went into a 7-race winning sequence, which took him to the World Championship, clinched Spa, as I said before, on round 14 of 18. The main opposition this year has come largely from British American Racing, BAR, Jenson Button, 10 podiums, Takuma Sato 1 podium. But on their day, McLaren have been there, the win in Belgium. We're riding on board here with Michael Schumacher, and the Williams team here this afternoon certainly stepped up the last 2 Grand Prix as well. But Ferrari have had the dominant package of the season. What will happen over the winter? Will Michael Schumacher find himself back here in 8th place a bit more often in 2005, or will they manage to keep their neck ahead of the opposition? What about Renault? Will they be able to find something over the winter? Fernando Alonso has been very strong too in this final Grand Prix, often a few indicators of how teams might start the following season. It's not been a vintage year for Formula One, but we're getting a vintage conclusion to it.
Absolutely. Looks like Ralph's made a bit of a mistake. Michael right up behind him now, and we know Michael took wing off for the race. Is he going to be anywhere near an out-braking manoeuvre down into turn 1? Let's hope we follow this, because surely he's shaping up nicely, just a fraction too far behind, but he's still got a chance to duck out of the slipstream. We're watching the wrong bit, my friend. Where was the 2 Schumachers? They must have been so close as they went into the braking zone of turn 1. You have to say, since Michael binned his, he's behind still, but since Michael binned his race car, he's never quite looked on top of this T car around here. Of course, he's had so little time to set it up. Straight into qualifying 1 and then park Fermé. He had to race it exactly as it was.
That's his brother, he's racing, and his brother is not about to let him through. 6th and 7th places, the 2 Schumacher brothers. Michael now the oldest man in Formula One. He turns 36 on the 3rd of January next year. And how much longer will he continue in Formula One? Certainly crashes like the one he had on Saturday morning will make him think. But he's such a racer. He so enjoys what he does. And his team are really on top of their game at the moment. Why should he stop racing Formula One cars? It's what he loves, it's what he's done for such a very long time. And there's nothing he likes more than getting himself into a good scrap, particularly with his brother, and that's what he's got right now, with just 7 laps in which to try and pass him before the checkered flag.
Yes, he's a lot further behind this time. They're all lapping 1:13.0, 1:13.4. In fact, the 2 Schumis are slowing themselves down a bit, and that's what I was talking about. Michael never quite hooked up in this car, and making all sorts of adjustments inside the cockpit. Brake balance, look, being adjusted now as he heads down to turn 4. They're beginning to slip back from Alonso and Sato. Sato looking like he'll have a real charge at Fernando Alonso before the end of this Grand Prix.
Just to explain what happened, Michael Schumacher had that crash yesterday morning at this very turn here, turn 6, and had to jump into the spare car with the spare engine as well. So he didn't have very much time to set up the chassis that he's driving at the moment. Ferrari pretty good at putting one chassis settings onto another, but clearly he's not really enjoying the car this afternoon. Now leading the Grand Prix by just over a second is Juan Montoya. He's managing to stay a tenth or so every lap ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, and his wife Connie Montoya is talking now with Louise Goodman in the pits. She must be pretty nervous, I would think.
I think she is, James. We're actually stood outside the McLaren office. Connie is peering through the window of McLaren at the television screens, keeping a very close eye on her man. Connie, nervous moments for you?
They're I'm very nervous. It's amazing. I'm just trying to compare the times, and
he's doing well.
Very well. He never thought it was going to be such a good race for him, so fingers crossed. 6 laps to go.
We'll keep our fingers firmly crossed. Thanks, Connie.
Another person watching this with his fingers crossed is going to be Sir Frank Williams, sitting at home, not coming out to this Grand Prix, and Frank will be mighty pleased with what he's looking at the moment. Montoya still with a 1 second lead.
Yes, he certainly will. Great to have you with us, Sir Frank. Hope you're enjoying your afternoon along with everybody else. Anita's wedding coming up in Coronation Street just after this Grand Prix. I know, a very big day on the street, but we're having a very big day here on the racetrack at Interlagos. Just 5 to go, and Kimi Raikkonen is less than a second behind Juan Montoya. Meanwhile, in a tremendous scrap for 4th place between Alonso, Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher, only a second and a half separating the 4 cars, and Michael Schumacher having nibbles at his brother but can't do anything about him. Is Sato, one of the best passers in the business, going to be able to find a way past Alonso for 4th place? It's all set for a fantastic conclusion here as they come through to complete another lap. We're riding on board with Ralf Schumacher. And, well, there's a DVD coming out this Christmas of 50 years of onboard cameras. Certainly Bernie Ecclestone's organisation pioneering the technology. Some wonderful stuff there from Fangio through to the present day. And some of the best parts of Grand Prix racing are this onboard footage. We're now riding on board with Michael Schumacher. That's his brother ahead, probably about 6 or 7 car lengths. But he just doesn't seem to be out close enough to him under braking, does he, Martin?
No, he's not got the car underneath him to really have. He's not got the grip and confidence. And then as soon as he gets in the turbulent air, that's been worked so hard as it passes over and under the surfaces of that BMW Williams, and that's what happens. Michael just gets a little snake, has to stay off the throttle a fraction longer, and because the acceleration of these cars is so incredible, mind-blowing, that even a half-tenth waiting for the car to settle down, you watch the car in front of you like a concertina just disappear.
Sato looks a bit closer to the back of Alonso than he has for some time through the Junção corner. You can see picking up the speed. That's the BAR Honda, the sole remaining BAR Honda in this Grand Prix, because teammate Jenson Button was the first man to retire from the race with an electrical problem. We saw smoke pouring out of his engine. Sato having a bit of a look there. He left it very, very late into turn 1. He didn't make it stick, but he got very close to Fernando Alonso.
Alonso's doing a sterling job. He hasn't got the fastest car, I don't think, of those 4. But somehow, well, he hasn't on that lap. He's losing tenths every lap, but still maintaining position. And look, this is for the lead then. It's down to 0.8 last time around. What is it over the line this time? It is 0.6. So Raikkonen did have a little something else, just snatching the left front on the way into turn 1. No problem at all. It's the unloaded wheel and really not doing too much work at that stage, which is why it locked. And they're beginning now to catch Villeneuve, who's 10th. He's about to be lapped.
Well, Ron Dennis, the boss of the McLaren team for whom Kimi Raikkonen drives, saying that he's already started talking to Montoya about next season, about what he likes, about how to get the best out of him, human conditioning, human performance, all of those things. But for sure, one of the best ways of getting something out of a racing driver is by having an extremely fast and aggressive teammate. Raikkonen will be that man next year, and these two are undoubtedly going to be driving each other on to greater and greater heights. And that will of course push McLaren closer and closer to Ferrari, but Raikkonen makes a mistake there.
Way too high in Bica de Pato, the corner that is so tricky. It's so dirty on the outside. You have to drive across the grass on the inside almost to give yourself a chance of keeping the nose where you want it. And look how that has affected the gap.
Into the very closing stages then of this Grand Prix. Just 2 laps of this track, just over 5 miles then, in which Kimi Raikkonen can try and take the victory in the final Grand Prix of 2004, but Montoya looks to have it all covered at the moment.
Yeah, Raikkonen made another mistake. I think he's getting tired, made another mistake turning in at 1 there, just went in a little bit too deep. He's pushed it so hard, and Montoya has had, look at him, also leaning over through the corners. The neck gone. They've really put so much energy into those cars today.
The pace has been absolutely extraordinary. We're in the closing stages here of 71 laps, and they're lapping in the high 1 minute 11s, well and truly inside the lap record pace of previous years. They're going so incredibly fast, and it takes it out very much on the drivers. Montoya just resting his head, just trying to get through this final 4 or 5 miles, but his performance, his strength and his desire to win here this afternoon has been the telling factor. Raikkonen and McLaren tried something different on the strategy. They left him out a little bit longer to try and do something after the final pit stop, but it didn't quite work out, and Montoya has reacted superbly well. Ted, what can you tell us?
Big tension down here at McLaren. They're loving this, seeing both their drivers who are going to be working for them next year fighting tooth and nail. And while you're down here, you've got to say, James, big credit to all these mechanics in this pit lane. It's been such a long season, they've worked so hard.
Thank you for that, Ted. Now, Montoya looks like he's going to avenge the race he lost when he tripped over the back of Jos Verstappen here, and back in 2001, it looks like it's going to come right for him this time. Raikkonen, of course, does not have an answer from that far back. 1.3 seconds adrift. Alonso, Ralf Schumacher has passed Sato. Ralf Schumacher's passed the BAR in the last lap. Michael Schumacher remains 7th.
So Montoya, just a few corners to go then to get his first victory of the 2004 championship. It's all foot to the floor and just drive for the line. He's got a back marker in his way as he comes out of the Junckau corner. He will negotiate him safely. It's the Minardi of Zolt Baumgartner. He dives down the inside of him, and Juan Montoya is already punching the air. The Colombian contingent love this because Montoya wins the Brazilian Grand Prix. What a dramatic race, just ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. The winning margin exactly 1 second after almost 200 miles of racing. Juan Montoya wins. Barrichello is going to be in 3rd place, a distant 3rd, and you can see the joy for Montoya on the radio to his team. His last Grand Prix for the BMW Williams squad. What better way to finish off a 4-year relationship than with a win, and especially an unexpected one like this. But qualified front row of the grid, and he's translated that into a victory. Here comes the battle though for 4th place. The top 4, the big 4, Alonso, Ralf Schumacher, Sato and Michael Schumacher. They're going to cross the line with Ralf Schumacher ahead of Sato. As you can see, the pass made just a lap ago, and they take the final points positions with Michael Schumacher 7th, Massa in 8th place. But the winner here in Sao Paulo, a very, very happy Juan Montoya. So, I really enjoyed that. That was a terrific race. Massa, the final point then for the Sauber team, ahead of teammate Fisichella. And that's a really good end to the season for Felipe Massa, qualified in 4th place for this Grand Prix. But to hold back a driver of the calibre of Giancarlo Fisichella is really some achievement. Jacques Villeneuve, unable to score a point in his final Grand Prix for the Renault team, nor is David Coulthard. He just couldn't get past Villeneuve on the day, and in fact finished 14 seconds behind him at the end. But Coulthard's pace, very representative on the day. Trulli 12th for Toyota ahead of Zonta, his teammate 24 seconds ahead of his teammate Zonta, so he really put him away this weekend. Christian Klien is 14th, Timo Glock 15th, 16th Baumgartner and 17th Bruni. And there's Giselle Bundchen. We didn't get a close-up of her when she waved the flag originally, but she is the top model, girlfriend of Leonardo DiCaprio, and she was looking the right way, unlike Pele a couple of years ago. There's the classification after 71 laps of what was a fabulous end to 2004.
Montoya winning it then by just a scant 1 second. Barrichello coasting through the last lap, ended up 24 seconds, and I think will be somewhat disappointed with only third place today. We had a lot of people in the paddock surprised at the lack of Ferrari pace. Alonso hanging on, although he ended up, look, 49 seconds adrift. And remember, he was leading this race by a country mile, having started on dry tyres in marginal conditions. Made it work out, kept himself on the racetrack until the track came to him, and was then absolutely flying.
Juan Pablo. Juan Pablo. Hey!
A very happy moment for him. Hervé Blash there from the FIA, just marshalling everybody. The Williams mechanics delighted about this. Welcome back to Sao Paulo, Brazil, where Mrs. Montoya congratulates her husband, Juan Pablo, on a mesmerising drive here. And Mrs. Barrichello does the same thing for her husband, Rubens. It's not a victory for Barrichello, it's not the home victory he hoped for. It is third place, yet another podium for Rubens Barrichello in what's been a pretty exciting season for him. His 14th podium in 18 Grand Prix. And the mechanics and everybody else rushing down to see the podium celebrations. Remember last year, this race finished in complete confusion. In the rainstorm, no one knew who had won. But here today, Martin, there was really only one winner. Juan Pablo was fantastic on the day, wasn't he?
Yes, he had an answer for every condition and every other team and driver combination. Make any mistakes, comfortably really the driver of the day, no doubt about it. If you want to keep in touch with Formula One over the winter, look at f1itv.com. Always lots of information. It's going to be a busy winter for Formula One. You can buy a specialist magazine out every week and every month, give you quite a lot of details, some of which we can't get over on the TV. It'll fill in any missing spaces that's happened during this Grand Prix, of course. My thanks to all of our teammates at F1ITV. Really enjoyed working with each and every one of you. Good to work with you this year, James. Thanks to Mark Hughes, who's been up here in the commentary box with us, giving us also, Mark Hughes of Autosport, giving us all sorts of useful information.
Yeah, Kevin Chapman also working with us on the commentary. It's been a pleasure. It's not been a vintage season of Formula One, but we have had a terrifically exciting race with which to finish the season, and hopefully this is a taste of what we might expect next season. We'll now hear the Colombian national anthem. races tell it all. Juan Pablo Montoya delighted to have come out on top in front of his teammate for next year, Kimi Raikkonen. He loves that. Raikkonen's face tells a different story. He really gave it a run. He tried hard, but he just didn't have enough on the time. Ruben's really struggling, I think. As Dickie Stanford, team manager, has been with Williams' team for a very, very long time. One of the best guys in the paddock, real hard worker. Rubens Barrichello struggling a little bit. He's been bending over, catching his breath. Kimi Raikkonen then. Second, he will say, always is first of the losers.
Three different cars on the podium again. It's certainly tightened up this end of the season, hasn't it, James? Amazing, as you say, once Michael got that championship.
Presented by Mr. Paolo Scaglione, President of the National Sporting Authority, the CBA.
Bittersweet for Rubens, I think. Third place. He's not that super happy about it, is he? But he was 26 seconds ahead of teammate Michael Schumacher. Not too shabby.
Gentlemen, well done.
Certainly wasn't a quiet afternoon for Ferrari after a dominant season. Formula One needed a strong finish, and we got it to the Samba beat here in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 4 different makes of car in the top 4. He's had a taste of the future. Montoya, the winner. Formula One, the winner on the day. We'll see you in Melbourne next March.